Good day and welcome to Numeracy and Mathematics 1. Today we're going to discuss Unit 2 of Numeracy and Mathematics 1, and then later we discuss Unit 3. Now first of all, let's look at Unit 2, the outcomes of learning. Outcomes of learning refer to what you need to know, what you need to understand, or what you need to master at the end of that unit. Now, after completing this unit, students should be able to teach the following at pre-primary level. In other words, you must have mastered the skills, the way how to teach these topics to a pre-primary school level kid. Now, you must be able to explain the advantage of counting, explain the advantage of counting in everyday life. In other words, if you teach your learner to count, what are the advantages, what are the benefits? How will they benefit if they are if they know and they master the topic counting? If they have master counting, for example, they'll be able to go to the shop and know how much change they're supposed to get, or how much bread cost, or how much what cost, and so on. They will be able to know even to count time, or to see how many minutes, what is the time, what is the hour, and so on. Those are the benefits that we're going to explain or talk about. Describe how to teach learners to count up to 100. You have to teach a learner at pre-primary school to count from 1 up to 100. So how do you do that? That is the outcome of this lesson. What is it that we want to teach you so that you can know how to teach a learner to count up to 100. And then you must also be able to develop learner skills of visual memory recall by identifying numerals in their environment. In other words, if a learner is walking, for example, in a street, and you see a sign there, or you are driving from one place to another and you see a sign there that says 2 kilometers to Mep, or 10 kilometers to Windhoek, or 10 kilometers to Okahau, a learner must be able to say that, oh, what does that mean? It means we are 10 kilometers before that place, or before Ochakati, before Windhoek, or whatever. So all these numerals that we see in our everyday life, the learner must be able to interpret that in numerals to himself or to his understanding. And that is very critical for you to be able to teach the learners to be able to read these signs. Now, outcomes of learning continue. You must be able to describe how learners could orally express their understanding of numbers, sequence, and symbols, and unequal values of numbers from 1 to 100. In other words, you must be able to help the learners to orally express their understanding of these things. In other words, you can ask them the sequence of number, for example, or the sequence of symbols that you have taught them, or they must be able to say that this is not equal to this, or this is equal to this. Those are the things that you need to teach them. For example, if you have two numbers, 3 here and 7, they need to know which one is equal to, which one is not equal to, and so on. By using these numbers that we have talked about, or these signs that we have talked about. For example, we have this one, and we have this one, and we have the equal to, and we have the not equal to. Let me write it in red, is better. We have this sign, which means is less than. This one, we call it less than. And we have this, we call it greater than. And this, we call it equal to. And this one, this is equal to. And if you have an equal sign that is scratched like that, we have what we called not equal to. Now, when you are having these symbols here, it is very critical to you to, so if you have a number here, for example, is 7, and there is a sign, that means 7 is less than 8, for example. And if you have this one, it means, for example, you are saying 8 is greater than 7. And the other one, it says that 8 is equal to 8, for example. Or you can say 4 is not equal to 4.5, for example. That is how you should, these 4 signs, you need to learn and to master them. And we're going to discuss that a little bit later. Describe how to develop learners' awareness of set numbers presented by a group of objects. In other words, you need to be able to describe the awareness of set numbers presented by object, and you must be able to convey this to your learners. You must write a lesson and demonstrate method and materials to teach and assess. That is one of the objectives of this lesson. Now let's look at developing learners' understanding of number symbols and value. Now in ethnomathematics is one of the topics that is in your study guide. What is ethnomathematics? Ethnomathematics refers to the learning of counting numbers outside the school setting. For example, at home, at the shop, to playing games and in their own language. You know that when the learners come to the pre-primary level, they have a language that they speak. Most of them not really fluent in English, but they have a language that they speak. And in that language, there is a way of counting. So you must learn, for example, you must know that the learners know something about counting when they come to school. And it's not just, they just come home from school, even if they are in the village, they know how to count because they have to count the goats, they have to count the amount of seats, or they have to count the amount of people at home, or they have to count animals or whatever. Now, when they come home, when they come to school, they come with this home counting mentality. So you need to capitalize on that and use that for you to be able to teach them how to count. For example, in English, and then you can help them to understand what is counting and how do we count. Remember, these learners also, before they come to school, for example, their parents are sending them to the shop, and their parents send them with money, $5, go and buy bread, and the bread is $4. When the learner comes to the shop, he or she will give the $5, but he's expecting $1 change. Then when he get that $1 change, then he will be able to say that, okay, this is the correct change, because otherwise there will be some, robbery and so on by the shop owners and so on. So the learners have an idea of what is counting. Sometimes also they have this counting that they know when they are playing games. They are jumping a rope, or they are counting whatever games that they are counting and so on, that they are playing that involve counting. Such games also help them to master counting. Now, this ethnomathematics refer to this knowledge and skills that the learners are having before they come to a school, and they know something about mathematics. They know something about adding up, subtracting, dividing and so on. Sometimes they come with sweets from the shop, and they have to divide the sweets among everyone at home. So they will give one to Papa, one to Mama, one to the small sister, one to the... They know that they have to divide. And then they see that, oh, there are still 6 left. I can still give them each one, one, and so on. They have that skills and that language of counting in them. So you just need to capitalize on that. Why do learners need to learn numbers? Now, the very first thing that you need to know is that learners need to learn numbers because they need to communicate their age. They need to communicate the prices of items when they are sent to the shop. They need to determine the distance from this place to that place. They need to, although they won't really know that is how many kilos or what, but they will know which one is far, which one is near. That is very, very critical. And then they will also need time for them to be able to do the counting. They need to count. And then make connections, sort out things, group things, understand other objects, and describe situation. So learners need to learn numbers because they need to make connection. How do they make the connection? They need to sort out the things. They need to group the objects. They need to understand the subject and description of the situation. They need to solve problems, dividing things equally, buying and selling and stuff. Sometimes they play these games of buying and selling, and you can is one of the games that you can play in your classroom with them, so that one can be a buyer, the other one is a shop owner, and they are selling items in the shop, not really real item, but they can play a shop game and so on. And also, learners need to learn numbers because it helps them to reason. So when they are buying things, they need to know numbers so that they can reason what is the change, what is the cost, and so on. And even complain, for example, if something is too expensive and so on. They need to know numbers to resolve conflicts and solving issues that involve numbers. They need to know numbers also because they need to use the telephone or the house number. They need to know what is their mom's cell phone number. They need to know what is dad's cell phone numbers and stuff like that. They also have to involve issues that involve numbers, solving those type of problems that involve numbers among themselves or even at home. They need to know those type of things that they can use with numbers. Developing learners' understanding of numbers, symbols, and value. Now, how do you help the learner to count from 1 up to 100? Teach learner to count up to 100 by using objects, class activities, and demonstrations. What does that mean? When you start first, you need to start with using objects. You have 5 objects and you attach numbers to the object, and then the learner can see that this is object 1, this is object 2, this is object 3, and it goes all the way up to object, for example, 20. From there, you need to also to give them things like posters where they can count, or you can give each one a number. This one is number 1, this one is number 2, this one is, and they must count one by one, listening to one another. As they are counting and listening to one another, that is how they learn to count. How do you also teach learners to count up to 100? As we say, you can use object, we can use posters, you can also use things like worksheets, or you can also use things like games, where you give them activities or class activities where they have to fill in or answer things on counting. You can also give them especially the counting games where they have to count 1, 2, 3, and at number 3 you jump, or at number 6 you sit, and at number 10 you do what. Those type of games are very useful for the learners to learn how to count. And then you need to also demonstrate this counting process on the blackboard. You can write numbers from 1 to 100 on the blackboard, and you can show them this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4, 5. It goes on until you reach 100, and learners must come and they must show and count the way you have counted. Or you can help them to write these things in their books, and they learn to count from their books by writing all the numbers from 1 all the way up to 100. So that is, now you demonstrate how to count. You show them that this is how we count. This is how we do count from 1 to 10. Always start with 1 to 10. And if you see they master 1 to 10, move to 11 to 20. If they master that, you go on to 30 and so on, until one day they master the counting up to 100. Rote counting. You need to know what is rote counting. Now, rote counting refers to teaching learners to recite numbers without attaching meaning to it. You just let them repeat after you. It's rote counting. They repeat 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, and it goes on like that until they know how to count. It's not like they are attaching object. They are not saying, for example, this is 1 object, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, and so on. But what they are doing is they are simply counting. They are just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 without attaching any number to any object and so on. So that is what we call rote counting. Not thinking, just know the order. And then there is rational counting. Now, rational counting refers to counting with sense by attaching meaning or object to each counting. This type of counting is important for a learner to understand that only one number is assigned to an object, and that 2 is one number higher than the other one. Rational counting also teaches the cardinal rule that the last number name is the number of objects counted. So the difference between rote counting and rational counting, rote counting, you just count. You don't attach it to an object. You are not counting object. You are not counting stones. You are not counting what. You are just counting. But rational counting, you count. For example, you have these pencils here, and you count 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the last one here tells you, according to the cardinal rule. According to the cardinal rule, and number 4, the last one that you say is number 4, that means you have 4 pens. So you attach a number to an object. That is what we call rational counting. You think of what you are counting. You attach meaning and numbers to the different things that you are counting. Now, counting activities at pre-primary schools. What are the activities that I can use to teach learners how to count at pre-primary school? The first one is counting song and rhythm. Develop games and songs that involve counting. There's quite a lot of games that involve counting, and you can come up with others whereby learners, for example, stand in a circle and they count 1, 2, 3, 4, and whoever is number 5 must come in the center of the circle. And you count like that, until everybody is number 5 and so on, and you see who is the winner and so on. You can teach them a lot of other games on counting, but those are the counting that will help for you to be able to understand counting. Number chart activities. Develop numbers charts that will require learners to do rational counting. In other words, you give them different charts where there is numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then you can say, the one with number 1, can you raise up? Or the number with number 4, can you sit down? One with number 7, can you dance? Or something. As long as they know that, okay, I'm the one who's having this number, and this is the instruction given that I must do this and I must do that. And they like this type of games and they enjoy it. But it helps them to learn. Teach learners to identify and attach meaning to numerals in their sounding environment. Street, house, address, time, distance on the road, calendars, and birthdays, for example. So you need to teach them these things. They must identify and attach meaning to numbers. When it is Monday, they must attach meaning to Monday, or Sunday. They must attach to meaning to that. The street house, street address, or home address, for example, is ERF number, what. They must know their ERF number. You can give them a homework to say that tomorrow when you come, I want everybody to come with your street name and house address or ERF number. And then they will come with these things. You can teach them things like time, for example. You can teach them what time is it, what you come to school, what time do you leave school, what time is break, what time is what. You can teach them things like distance on the road and so on. You can teach them things like calendars and birthdays. For example, you can help them, or you can tell them that everyone tomorrow when you come, you write your birthday on a piece of paper and show the others, and you must explain to the others what is your birthday this year. Show them the calendar. Let them look at the calendar and see that my birthday this year will be on a Sunday, or my birthday this week will be on a Friday. And then you see, you can help them to do these things by letting them discuss it with the others and show or explain to the others. Simply by explaining the birthday to the others, they will be able to understand what birthdays and what is the numbers thing in terms of birthday. The 6 number symbol skills during pre-operational skills. There are 6 number symbols that you need to teach your learner. They are all in your study guide, very nicely stated there at the beginning of your study guide. The very first one is that they learn to recognize and say the numbers. Learners must be able to, the 6 simple skills, number symbol skills, is that they learn to recognize and say the numbers. They learn the orders of numbers. In other words, they learn that 1, after 1 comes 2, after 2 comes 3, after 3 comes 4. That is the second thing that learners must learn. We say the very first one is that they learn to recognize and say the numbers, and then they must learn the orders of numbers. The third one, they must learn to associate numerals with group or objects. In other words, they must do the issue of grouping object to say that this object is number 1, this object is number 2, this object is number 3, and so on. And then they learn to the cardinal rule that the number that follows the other one is one number more than the previous one, as we have learned earlier, that the cardinal rule referred to that 4, one number up is 5, one number, so 4 is actually one number up or than the previous one, which is 3, and so on. They learn to match a group size to a numeral that represents it, and then they learn to write these numbers. When they learn to write this number, you can help them and teach them to write this number. These are the 6 rules that you need to know, and you need to follow these rules as you are teaching your learners how to count up to 100. So in conclusion, you use your theoretical skills in your daily practical teaching. Very important that you must learn what you have. You must use these things that you have learned in your practical skills. And then you must create study group with other students. You must conduct tutors between 5 and 8. You should, when you experience problem, that is the time that you should conduct your tutor.